So it says there of setting our profound Mahayana motivation for engaging in listening, reflecting, thinking about establishing a daily practice, particularly when you've just now taken refuge, renewed refuge vows, and so forth, and thinking also continue to rejoice in our wonderful karma to have had the opportunity to have Geshe Zopa here kindly being generous with his time and his advice, and having done the consecration, and Geshe, I think, was very, very happy with all the bounteous offerings, and yeah, we had to sort of take some down because, you know, Shakyamuni Buddha's head was just peeping over the Mount Meru's of offerings, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And you know, all the work that went into that over so much time of preparation, and then Geshe kindly, all it takes is one student to request refuge, and look what's happened, you know. So that is a great opportunity, and Geshe kindly giving that time. It was quite a long day yesterday, but a good one. So I think we continue to soak up the vibes that the meditation group felt when they were here, and hopefully we can still feels like party mode. So we'll go with that. So I thought today, because of the refuge, can I have a gold book?
I got it.
Oh, I have. No, yes, I have. Sorry. Lots of piles. So I thought that to go over, in terms of refuge, the commitments for afterwards, and then if there are any questions arising, we can go through those and then continue on with where we were up to. So traditionally what happens, as Geshe did yesterday, was to give some brief teaching at the beginning. So Geshe gave that advice for before you take refuge. He gave teeny tiny few little bits at the end. But to go through what is normally done is that's presented a little bit more elaborately. And I know that we've covered the refuge module, but it's good to refresh and just clarify any points that have come up, especially, yeah. They might come up further down the track once you've been abiding in refuge for some time. You just got thinking about that, and what is that actually? Okay, so it's on page 115 here, and please, anytime there's a question, please speak up. So Geshe did mention this: having taken refuge in the Buddha, one should not take refuge from the depths of their heart in worldly gods, such as Brahma and so on. So Geshe mentioned that, and that's, Geshe was speaking about this when we were having a conversation earlier in the day, and saying he'd recently given bodhisattva vows in Indonesia. I was trying to think, where was it? And so there were Christians, there was Hindus and so forth. And it was saying, you can give the bodhisattva vows because you can take the bodhisattva vows without making this commitment of refuge, because it's really a commitment to altruism and how you engage with that in your life. Of course, when we take particularly within a Mahayana tradition, bodhisattva vows, it's on the understanding of those sort of the downfalls that can be incurred and so forth. So similarly, but however, taking refuge in the Buddha means that you don't go for refuge then in other, well, it says worldly, but we can also think beyond that in other religious traditions, okay? So it doesn't mean you can never go to a church or mosque or anything like that again. I've been many times with my interfaith brothers and sisters, just recently as well. So no qualms about that, but that we don't become a sort of, and people, some people do, like you'll hear Jewish people, what do they call themselves? Jubies.
Jewish Buddhists.
Yeah, Jewish Buddhist. So that's not a difficulty because they're embracing as Jewish people the Buddhist thing, or Christian Buddhists or so forth. But once we take refuge, we're taking Buddhist vows and we're not mixing that with others. So that it means we have the karma to follow this path, and that's best for our spiritual development. So we want everything to go in that direction. And particularly we can say, not only have we met the Mahayana path, the great scope, but the profound teachings of Lama Zopa, which are the most definitive teachings, understanding dependent origination and emptiness, which is a future module. So don't worry about that just now. Sure, if you have questions. And so it's basically saying not to, as it says, prostrate to such objects. Having said that, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has said Jesus Christ was a great bodhisattva. So I'm just putting that out there. One should not entrust oneself from the depths of one's heart to non-virtuous friends. So that can be tricky. So it means that for us to develop in the spiritual path of not hanging out too much with those who might turn our minds away from Dharma. That's what the non-virtuous means. Of course, we know if I'm around people who swear a lot, there's a danger that I might start swearing a lot. For myself, there's no danger of that. Thanks to the vows I have, but also thanks to growing up in a household where swearing was frowned upon.
Swear jar.
Huh?
Swear jar. You know, it was
swore,
yeah, put money in the
jar. Oh, okay. Yeah, swear jar. Okay. And what did the money go towards?
I don't know,
some beneficial project.
Yeah, Mum did something with it.
She did something with it. Probably fed you.
Yeah.
Depends. No, then she would have encouraged you to swear more, so she got more money. Anyway, yeah. So we were discouraged from that. So it's like that, you know, an alcoholic who's in recovery doesn't hang out in the pub, all that sort of thing, that we don't immerse ourselves in bad company. Of course, if they're friends, if they're family, of course, we're not going to cut off our relationships with people, particularly if we can be of benefit to them. All teachers of non-Buddhist tradition teachings. So it says from the depths of your heart, you might want to get teachings from non-Buddhist teachers. You know, you might want to do that, but in the context, let's say spiritual teachers, in the context of your Dharma practice. Again, if I refer to my women's interfaith, the Women's Interfaith Network in Sydney that I was a member of for many years, even to this day, still consider myself a member, even though I haven't managed to attend a meeting for some years. But learning so much from each other about how their faith tradition, you know, different, you know, how we approach education, how we approach mysticism, how do we approach the role of women, how do we approach whatever our favourite prayers, etc. The reason was to find common ground, and everyone's experience that it only strengthens your own faith, but not we were never in conflict with each other. It was always like, oh, we do that too, just we do it in this way. So that's fine, but we're not giving up our, you know, our Buddhist refuge, okay? Having taken refuge in the Dharma to avoid harming any being directly or indirectly. So we talk about indirectly by making others do it. And this is one that's a lifelong practice, because we get more and more aware of what harm is and what avoiding that harm is. And there were always dilemmas in samsara. Fortunately, we have purification, but there's always those dilemmas where it's not straightforward. Do I save the insect stuck in the spider web and the spider's going to starve, or do I let nature take its course? That's a dilemma. We can debate and debate and debate, right? I'll just pray for them all to be reborn in a human body where they don't get stuck in each other's web. That we do get stuck in each other's web, right? Having taken refuge in Sangha, one should avoid entrusting oneself and keeping company with negative friends. So, as we said earlier, and followers of hedonism. So, of course, to some extent, we're all followers of hedonism, which means doing things pleasing to the senses. But if that's all you're doing, then there's a danger of that we forget our perspective, we forget our Dharma's perspective, or it weakens. It's not yet strong. We want to strengthen it. So again, it doesn't mean not going to the family Christmas or, I don't know, birthdays or whatever. You might have other reasons for that, but not this one. But yeah, again, so we won't be swayed away from the commitment we've made. So, any questions on that so far? Yes.
Just in the respect to the first one, being of a Buddhist faith and having beginning in the Catholic religion.
Yes.
Now viewing the, I've led myself to this point, but if I'm going to attend something in the church or a ceremony or a death, or there is these protocols of respect that when entering church,
that's fine.
You bless and you genuflect.
Yeah. That's important. So you still do that. You do your genuflections, and you think, I'm prostrating to the Buddha.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So yes, we need to, like all faiths have their traditions. Like when I go into a mosque, even though my vows are not to wear a hat, not, but I know that's offensive in a mosque. So I'll put this over my head and wear a sort of veil. Because you've got to cover your head, or women have to cover your head. Yeah. So I follow that, but so you follow their protocols. Yeah, that's fine. But it becomes what our motivation is, our attitude is. So that's a pure motivation. You don't want to upset anyone of that faith. You want to respect that faith, but you're not adopting that traditions. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. What is to be practiced? So, having taken refuge in the Buddha with a mind of respect towards those gone to bliss, which is the Buddhas, one should regard even statues as being actual Buddhas and should prostrate and pay respects to them. So here we have, when we come into the Gompa, Geshe-la mentioned this yesterday to everybody with the consecration, or when people come in to fold our hands in prostration to Guru Rinpoche. But, we can do that to all the manifestations here, and seeing that wherever there's a statue, a stupa, a tanka, and so forth, there a Buddha is. In fact, on every atom of space, there a Buddha is. We just can't see them. And so, but particularly when we're in front of holy objects, to, respectfully offer prostrations. This is fine. This is fine. Even this is fine. And of course, when the protocol, when we come into a Gompa, is to offer 3 prostrations to the Buddha. That's a protocol. So once you've taken refuge, the commitment is 3 times in the morning, 3 times at night to offer prostrations to the Buddha. If you've got an altar at home, then that's it. Yes, and the refuge prayer 3 times in the morning, 3 times at night. So that's your minimum commitment. And you've got your refuge book with additional prayers in there. One should avoid showing disrespect to them by, for example, placing them on the bare ground. People do this because they don't know. They get one at the garden centre and put them on the ground. If we ever have the ability to raise them up from the ground, not going to everybody's home and giving them a telling off. But we could say, you know, if it's a family member or friend, such a beautiful Buddha. Now, it's really good to elevate the Buddha, put the Buddha on a pedestal, and then you know, you've got a great view. So much better. Raise them up. If they're like, you could also say it's a mark of respect, and clearly they've got that Buddha statue because it makes their mind happy. For, you know, they have some sense of respect. So we engage that with our wisdom mind, what's possible for others in relation to others. So generally we think about Buddha statues, texts and so forth, not to be at the level where our feet point, which brings me to the library, which I think still has some on the bottom shelf.
There is a wooden wood underneath now, though.
There's wood underneath, but it's about where your feet point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, they're not completely on the ground.
Yeah.
And this one with the text in particular can be very tricky. It's easier for us to elevate statues. But if we're carrying the text in our bags, like I've mentioned before, when I catch a plane, I don't put it under the seat in front. If it's in a bag, if I brought a bag onto the plane, I always bring a bag onto the plane. But I'm mindful, if I've got my prayers and practices or whatever, I make sure it's enough that can, you know, either go overhead or if I'm going to use them in the back of the pocket.
Well,
yeah.
That would include your laptop too, wouldn't it?
Yes, I said we've got to elevate so that laptops, hard drives are not on the ground. Yeah.
Because, when they contain Dharma.
Not on, well, it's very interesting because it's sort of cyberspace. When do they not contain Dharma? Is it when I've got that file open or when it's sitting there in cyberspace? Basically, majority of stuff I've got on my laptop's Dharma. I know that, so... Yeah, maybe it's okay for somebody who never searched on Dharma on their laptop. But yeah, so it's interesting because we don't think of those things. And when Rinpoche, I remember years ago when Rinpoche advised, you know, it was more the time of more hard drives was raising them up because they were made to sort of sit under your desk, you know.
Oh, the towers.
The towers, yeah. That's what I mean, the towers. And now the hard drives are like this. So whichever they are, to raise up. So not placing on the ground. So in terms of statues, tankas, stupas, not criticizing the Buddha image. We can say, I prefer that artisan's work to that one. That's fine. So we don't say, oh, that's good, that's bad, so that we clarify in our mind. We know what we mean, but we want to keep it clear in our mind that we're not disparaging a Buddha, because that brings heavy negative karma. Paying homage and respect to the Dharma, that are recognizing all scriptural texts or even just one syllable of the teaching. So Geshe-la mentioned this yesterday, even just one syllable of the Dharma text is actual Dharma and is the rare sublime Dharma. So we have out here in the office boxes of ones for Dharma images and ones for Dharma, but people seem to use the Dharma one to throw out every bit of paper. Like I see the message book for here thrown out there, and I'm like, why is that in the Dharma burning? There might be because there's some reference to, there might be names of statues or stupas or lamas or so forth in there, or practices. It might be mentioned in there. So that's probably why it's there. But generally what we do, and this is a whole ongoing practice, you can think about it at home, is cut out the Dharma text, cut out the Dharma image. The images go separately. And at this point in time, like we offered images inside for Guru Rinpoche statues. So they're images that are in a good condition. At this point in time, that gathering images for the stupa in Bunbury at Tara Meditation Centre. So that's going to be bigger than this, So many people offered items to put in the statue and all the mantras, and I thought, oh, well, if all the, make sure we've got enough mantras, but if they don't all fit, they can go in the other two statues that were consecrated at the same time. However, suddenly you realise everything fitted and there's space to fill. And so then you fill with incense. We've used up all the incense in the place. Not all the stick incense, all the powdered incense from out here. And then you have sandalwood. So we offered sandalwood to the statues. What do you call it? Sandalwood. Sawdust. It says sawdust, but I like to think of it as sandalwood. Otherwise, I think it's just any old chips of wood. So that filled up the spaces in between. It's quite amazing because when we were filling, we got some sort of, implement like this. We didn't use this one, and you start sort of going around like this, so the incense,
and it just went whoosh,
and it goes down into the holes, and you're just like, surely that hole's filled, and then you come back 5 minutes later, you do it again and again and again. Yeah. Okay. So it's all actual text, not placing on the bare ground, and not regarding them as just as material objects. Now, my mother brought us up to never make a mark in a book. Right. One time she saw me highlighting something. She was horrified. I mean, when you're studying and it's your own text, you want to highlight. So here, with the Dharma text, I will put underlines in pencil and so forth. I feel like reassured that I'm in good company, having seen Geshe Thubten, Lama Zopa Rinpoche putting bits and pieces in their notes in their text, but not on the text, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Though I do circle things with pencil, I must admit, or put those highlighting tabs across. But respecting it as Dharma, not seeing it as just, ordinary. We want to keep the Dharma purely.
Does that include not? I've never done this, but I remember reading somewhere that you shouldn't lick your fingers.
Absolutely. No, you do not lick your fingers to turn the page of Dharma text. Yeah, that's correct. Not using, this is regarding them as a material object, not using them as security for a loan, although I think that wouldn't be, unless you've got some very precious antique Dharma text that maybe, I'm not sure. I don't think it would work in this country. However, we could think about, not taking them to the pawn shop or whatever. And when people buy Dharma texts here, the idea is you're making a contribution back to the Dharma, because that money has to go back into Dharma. Anything that is received for Dharma classes, for Dharma texts, so forth, has to be kept separately, so it only goes towards the Dharma. So it might go towards buying more statues, more Dharma texts, or something like that, anything for the Gompa.
So you're not actually buying the book, you're making a contribution to the Dharma.
You're making a contribution. It's much better to think, I'm making a contribution to the Dharma. Not putting them together with your shoes. So if you've got a bag that you're going to be putting shoes in, this is why we have the text cloths, but I also like to keep the Dharma text in a separate compartment so that it is, I know it's separate, right, in a bag. These things just to be mindful of. Because, we come in here, we take off our shoes, And as we said, we don't want anything where our feet are pointed, let alone contacting the soles of the shoes that have been outside. One should, in relation to having taken refuge in the Sangha, regard even one member of Sangha as being the actual Sangha. So when it says actual Sangha, they're the Arya Bodhisattvas, the Arya solitary hearers, solitary realizers, hearers, who have a direct perceptual realization of emptiness. In any case, we don't know who those are, but having respect towards the Sangha. So generally, as a very, very ordinary Sangha member who has absolutely no realizations whatsoever, and I'm not just saying that, it's true, but having respect for our robes, so not as lay people touching our robes, that, and that also goes to, like yesterday, I was moving fellow Sangha members' seat over, and the dingwa, this cloth that Venerable Peko is pointing to, that we put on the seat, like there's one here, we put on the seat. The reason we put on the seat is to not contaminate public property. That's from our side. But also we don't, in general, touch each other's dingwa. This one's the teacher's one, so whoever sits on it, it's sort of like, it's okay, straightening out, making it nice for Geshe-la and everything, that was all fine. But generally we don't touch even each other. So I'd said, Venerable, I'm going to move your dingwa over. You try and get the whole thing together. And she said, I'll move it, because that's our commitment. But anyway, that's from our side. So from your side, even that cloth, they say even the colour to be respectful of. So how I think about that in terms of mats and cushions and so forth, which are indeed this colour, is that respectfully putting them back, where they belong. I have seen in some gompas, not this one, I have to say, have not seen it here, of people, throwing them down. Apart from which I went, I don't want the dust, which I was reminded yesterday, apparently these all need washing. Nobody can remember when they were last washed. So that's a certain indication that it was definitely,
Was washing done?
We usually do it in most places at least once a year. So this means it hasn't been done.
Or at least two.
For at least two. Yes, yes.
I've got that acetone for that. I've got a friend, we're going to have a go over Christmas.
Anyway, so I have on one of my robes, I got a little bit of paint, and another one many years ago, I was at Institute Vajrayogini, and I went into the satsang where they were making satsangs, and a bit of glue stuck to my shantal. And so when I wear that, I always remember, that's where I am. So it's a nice memory of, I was there. So I don't mind. And I can hide it as well. In any case, respecting Sangha. So normally, as you do, we stand up when Sangha come into the room, we prostrate to Sangha, and be respectful. So, having lived in accommodation with geshis and so forth, and coming down the stairs and all, it doesn't have to be in the gompa, right? And then after a while, like you can overdo it, and it's okay to overdo it. It's just like, but we don't have to keep prostrating the whole time they're in our presence, is what I'm meaning. Yeah, that's what I'm meaning. So, and avoid discriminating within the Sangha community. So from a layperson side of not having equal respect for all Sangha, because we are representatives of the Sangha community of the Buddha. and we have more vows. That's why we sat over the side yesterday, so that just to make clear that we're separate from those either taking the lay vows for the first time or renewing them, because if we were to participate, we'd be giving up our 36 vows. Yeah, so even though we know we're not doing that, just to make things clear, we set aside. One should train well in the advice concerning what is to be practiced, such as not even stepping over pieces of monastic robe or throwing them in dirty places, but instead placing them in clean places. So there's many stories of people finding even that colour of cloth and putting it up high. Any questions about that section? Yes.
A couple of things. Let's just go and make a point about when we were, well, when I was reviewing my vows and
yes, and
having the three of you sit where you were, it was like fully supportive of what we were doing.
I felt that way.
I felt I was.
As I was being a proud mum.
It was lovely.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. It was a two ways.
The second, just a question. Well, I mean, I'm always learning. What's
yes, you are.
What's not, and I mean, even when I was taking photos yesterday, I was conscious that the camera contained
images. Yes. Holy images,
then,
yes. Yes, so your camera's
where I was placing, when I returned to my setting, my camera, then I think I might have had it on the prayer booklet or something. And I mean, I feel that wasn't the right place. So
yeah,
just
that's
learning
good.
from other.
Yeah,
part of it is my own. It's almost like an intuition. Oh, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, which is wonderful. It means you've had imprints from the past.
Yeah, but then I also remember when I was helping with the video.
Yeah.
And I was sitting over this side, and I had to very quickly move the camera to Geshe. And I think either of you weren't at your seat, but I had to quickly move, and it was this thing of treading over, not your robes, because you weren't sitting there.
But the cloth, yeah.
One of you might have been sitting there, the way I was walking.
Yeah.
And I, at that point, I didn't really know about. Well, it's not like I'm not going to put my foot on your. Right. Yeah. Then do I go around? Like it's about learning what's kind of.
Yeah. And so in that situation, for example, I don't know if you could have come this way or you were blocked.
I think I was blocked.
I might have been right. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I would then normally ask, excuse me, I need to come through. It's probably a better.
Yeah, because it's also our responsibility. We can just fold this one up.
Yeah.
And make room. Yeah.
It's learning all of this.
It's learning. Yeah, exactly. It's learning.
Like any ritual, any tradition.
Yeah. But you had a sense of it, which is fabulous. So, yeah.
Where the prostrating cloth was for Geshe, I had to go around there, and it was like, so you could sort of like pop your feet underneath and sort of go along, but that was a bit. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure myself. Yeah, I knew not to tread on it.
Yeah, you might have seen people not walking on the prostration rug. That's also why we roll it up, because it puts it out of the way. You don't have to worry about it then. But also because when people are offering body, speech and mind, there's action going on, and you need to get the rug out of the way. Yeah. So they're just all things we learn about. You can't know day one, that you learn about, and we become more aware of as time goes by. And then you just observe also what others do, how they manage that space. Got to be careful who you're observing, of course. We do the best we can with the knowledge that we have. Yes.
I find it difficult sometimes coming in books and not having space, and sometimes
yes.
I have time to get another table. So often I prop my books up on my back.
That's okay, because it's not touching the ground and you're doing the best you can in the circumstances. That's
And other things, when it's just us, grab another table.
yeah. Yeah, but yesterday was it's a different thing, and it would have been, and we do get in situations like that where can I move?
Yeah, where can I put my holy thing?
No, but where can I even move to get something? Yeah, that's right. Well, just on the prostrations, which is I promised we'd get to today, but I'll finish this first. You know, for us, and this is really like Geshe is prostrating there. So because he's got the highest level of vows of everybody, then we do our best to nobody be prostrating in front of Geshe, so that we're all, you know, off to the side, fine, but not as far forward. Yeah, that's another level. It's so many protocols.
And they're all mindfulness things.
They are.
All mindfulness.
Yeah, but we wouldn't necessarily think, you know, we're doing anything wrong without knowing what's generally is what, as we say, Gompa etiquette. Gompa etiquette. Yeah.
So say on that point, I remember either Rob or myself were here at one of the Geshe's or Geshe Shura. Would it then be okay once Geshe's done his prostrations?
Yeah.
Then you do your if you're literally over here in front.
Yeah. So one thing you can do is turn towards him.
Turn towards him.
Or I do an angle thing, so it's sort of like get everybody here, like that, get the altar.
But then behind on an angle, but
behind. Yeah. But I just wanted to answer the second part about to wait till they sit. So Geshe Zopa always says, let's prostrate together. Okay. So you follow his advice and you're all prostrate together. So the convention usually is, so for example, I've been many teachings where it's either Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness, or Geshe's or so forth, where they come in, they do their prostrations, they sit down, and then everyone else prostrates. And that's prostrating afterwards. Like that's prostrating, you wait till they sit down, and then everyone prostrates to them, including the Buddha, then as inseparable from the Buddha. So that's the general convention. But I mean, I say that too. I say, let's prostrate together. Because, yeah. And so, yeah, so that was the second half. And
that's fine.
Okay. Anything?
So if Geshe would do a full prostration, do you tend to do a full prostration?
It's up to you. It's up to what your body and the space available. So, for example, yesterday for myself, because I didn't want to get in front of Geshe and there really wasn't space except to come over here in front. So I stayed on my spot, which meant I've got this much space. And so you just do the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is really tricky. Before I went over to McLeod Ganj, I suddenly found I could do full prostrations, and I was practicing to do for His Holiness. You're not allowed to. There's not enough space.
Yeah.
You've got like this.
Yes.
You either stand and do, or you do halves very compactly.
Yes. You sort of fold everything in. Yeah. Okay. In general, okay, one should rely on holy beings, listen to the holy Dharma. So this is where we take every opportunity. And today, these days, there's so much opportunity because there's so much online. His Holiness teaching online, many other Geshes and Lamas teaching online, that we can be confident of it being authentic Dharma. Well, the Dharma is always authentic, but authentic teachings and so forth. And after correctly comprehending it, this is why I always ask questions, to follow the Dharma and practice it, so that when we hear advice in teachings, to follow that to the best of our ability. If we're not sure, ask questions. But if we're sure, then we think, okay, I can do that, and incorporate as much as we can. Now, we don't want to make it too hard for ourselves, because this is what I mean of trying to do everything perfectly all at once. We're all works in progress. So we're just sort of, the more it starts to have meaning for us, our capability to do that also develops in what we do. You might have noticed already in the time you engage with the Dharma. Yeah. Okay. Do not let one's senses become excited. I had to say it in an excited way. So controlling our senses so that we don't create negative karma. So say something, we want to go blah, 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 and all of a sudden, because we haven't controlled our speech, that something regrettable comes out because we've overexcited our senses. So it's like striking a happy medium. We say middle way approach, not getting too extreme highs to extreme lows. Of course, if we have those, that it's a mental health condition, we seek the appropriate, or, we seek appropriate help. But to maintain this sense of evenness or equanimity, and that also preserves, when we're engaging with the senses, all our energy is going outwards and dispersing. So it's weaker. So bringing all our energies in by not so much going out there all the time. Just to be aware of that. That's a big work in progress.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Is it okay to be excited about positive Dharma things?
Absolutely. Go for it, I think. Yes. Rejoice. Rejoice in the positive Dharma things.
Okay.
So, for example, myself and Venerable Yeshi are going to Indonesia soon, and we got an email saying there's a Sangha audience with Taisitu Rinpoche, and so of course we're rejoicing about that.
And I can rejoice for you,
and yeah, everyone else can rejoice for us. And it may or may not happen, as I discovered with expecting an audience with His Holiness. The date changed. We were somewhere where we couldn't get there. Anyway, so that didn't happen. Yeah, so rejoice in others' good Dharma fortune as well. Good fortune, generally. Yeah, and take as many vows as you are capable of. So having taken refuge, it's a foundation for taking bodhisattva vows, subsequently tantric vows, and so forth, but that you're ready for, okay? And you have the opportunity for. And then, as Geshe-la said yesterday, he indicated ordination vows as well. So I'm just saying Geshe-la said that. Or at least if we're thinking, well, not at the moment, we can think, maybe conditions arise in the future. But we might think future lifetimes. We don't have to think whether it's future lifetimes. We just say in the future. Having a compassionate attitude towards sentient beings. This is our bodhicitta motivation that we're cultivating as much as we can. When eating or drinking, to make effort to offer Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And so generally, we make that offering first. So, for example, when I've already had some of that water, but before taking, not afterwards, when we say, oh, I forgot, I'll do it now because I've already contaminated it with my breath or whatever. That's why we wear those masks, and to not breathe on the offerings and the holy beings, the representations of holy beings. But before, even, omahong. So if I'm out and about, or even indeed just now, in my mind, it's like I didn't sit here and make the offering prayer. It was just in my mind. So I'm just saying, when you're out and about with family, with friends, and who are not, well, even you don't want to draw attention to yourself, but in your mind you can visualize offering it before you drink, before you eat, without having to do, like that, just quick visualization in your mind. And then, of course, when we have pujas and things here and we're making those offerings, we do recite that offering prayer. You can do that at home. You can do it where it's appropriate. And the same with showing respect to Buddha objects and so forth, because there's so many representations of Buddhas in shops and everywhere. It's not like we physically do full prostrations or even half prostrations in the shop, but in our mind we can do that mentally, which is the most powerful prostration anyway. Yeah. Okay. So training our mind, but every time, even a glass of water, every time before, to think offering it to the Triple Gem. Every morning and every evening, 3 prostrations. So then it has the vows, and losing the vows, what it means to completely lose the vows. So killing a human being is like big no-no. I think we all get that in the world. Go to jail. Stealing an object that is valuable to another person, which is a little bit tricky because, it's better hands off everything that's not yours. So, for example, I did hear, I hope it was nobody present. I'm sure it was nobody present. I did hear that yesterday there was some afternoon, yeah, you know where I'm going. Afternoon tea set aside for Lama and Geshe-la. And so that was set aside, and there was some cakes, and one disappeared. And it was set aside in the kitchen away from everything else. That was the sort of clearly marked Geshe.
Right.
So
yeah, and it is clearly marked.
It's the,
yeah,
the zone.
it's the zone. Yeah, it's in the zone. So somebody didn't know it was the zone. And so as, from our side, the responsibility, and I'm sure in future there'll be another plan, is to prevent someone creating that heavy negative karma, because stealing, so it's not given. So let's say the person didn't know that's given, but that wasn't given, right? Because it can become confusing. There's food available. We offer freely. And so in the future, we have to say, okay, how can we make it look really obvious that this is not to be consumed by, anyone else? It's an offering to the lamas. And so we have to think, okay, what can we do better from our side? It says not guilt-tripping anybody, rather than thinking, oh, how dare they? Because clearly the person didn't know, right? And so we just improve our game. So we're protecting someone from doing that. And so it's that not nicking flowers. Well, it's over the fence, therefore it's public property that, has been nurtured by the occupants of the household. They haven't offered to you, etc. In King's Park, many examples.
So in my mind, I see it as not to take something that's not been freely offered. I know that's a whole heap of negatives.
No, but that's correct.
But to me, that makes it really, really clear.
If it's not mine,
and if someone hasn't said,
yeah. And as Sangha members, generally, we don't take anything until it's offered, right?
We can't assume.
We can't assume. So we wait until things are offered to us. That's our practice. Hence the offering of afternoon tea and so forth. Geshe-la would not have gone in the kitchen and says, I'll just make myself a cup. You would not see that, right? Ever.
You don't have a guest to.
Hmm?
I mean, if your guest is coming to your house, you make sure that they have.
Yes, a guest in the house. Yeah, absolutely. So just like that. Yeah. Alrighty. And so losing the vow from the root, engaging in sexual misconduct, in other words, sexual activities with another's partner or cheating on your own partner. telling us supreme lie, pretending you have attained realizations of the grounds and paths when you have not. So if you have attained those realizations, it's okay to say that, but you'll find that anybody who has will never say that, unless sometimes His Holiness directs lamas. You have to tell them all, like Tara Lama, the Austrian woman who was 20 years in Nepal in the cave, and then her Lama sent her around to talk about her experiences. So even though she didn't say very much about her experiences, apart from the sort of mundane, she didn't say, I've got any realization. She did not say that at all. But when she was asked in Sydney, what is your experience? It must be so different being in the cave in Nepal and being in Sydney. And she said, same. So she had obviously was not being caught up in the external realities, right? Same. She just said same. That was her experience. The Lama said, tell your experience. That's all you needed to know. Okay. We don't need to, I don't think, go through any of the other downfalls. Are there any qualms about any of the vows, any points of clarification needed? I think we've gone through it previously pretty thoroughly. And then the benefits of protecting the vows: you will not fall into lower realms. So your mind will be protected by upholding vows. So Geshe-la indicated yesterday, because he was talking about, when he was talking about people without refuge vows of other faiths could take bodhisattva vows, but not refuge vows. So he was saying, but then it's like the vow becomes like a substance on your mental continuum. It has a weightiness to it that continues to grow and grow and grow, even when you're unconscious. So that then that becomes a stronger, more powerful force, apart from the fact of having all these do's and don'ts reminds you again and again. So in that way, because your mind's being protected, as long as so holding the vows means purely holding ethical conduct of our body, speech, and mind. And then we go, oh, I don't do it purely. But again, we work on holding that purely and then doing purification practices, say at the end of the day or whatever, or even when some negativity arises, to just even visualize white light being purifying of that. Temporarily, in other words, until you achieve enlightenment, you'll continuously achieve the body of a deva or human, in other words, being reborn in the upper realms, and you will ultimately achieve the state of liberation. So if we hold vows purely, we're not going to be bad-mouthing people, we're not going to be lying, we're not going to be using abusive speech, let alone killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, those things. So that we can maintain the vows purely. So that then, it's always emphasized that ethical conduct is a foundation then for us attaining Buddhahood. It's certainly a foundation for us attaining a perfect human rebirth, or a human rebirth is based on ethical conduct. And then you can see there's a lot of unethical conduct in humans in this world. But on top of that, we've made aspirational prayers to meet the Dharma again, stainless prayers to meet the Dharma again, to probably take refuge. The conditions have arisen. We've done this before. We're doing it again. We're fulfilling that. And so we have all the conditions to practice Dharma. So we have a precious human rebirth. Okay. The Buddha will always think of you, the protectors. It says beyond sorrow. So Dharma protectors we can see as Buddhas, and worldly protectors will praise and protect you. When we say praise, like the meditators coming in and feeling that sort of transformation of here, feeling like the whole atmosphere has changed. So that's sort of like the blessings that Buddha's being pleased with all of that amazing practice yesterday and everything that contributed to that, and showering down blessings for us. It's not that everyone's going to say, oh, you're brilliant, you're fantastic. Don't go there. Your qualities will increase limitlessly because they are limitless, and the time of death you'll die without regret, because as much as we uphold vows, as much as we uphold ethics, we're not going to have a mind of regret of, oh, I failed to achieve this or that. Avoiding killing, you'll have a long life in all future lifetimes. Avoiding taking what has not been given, in future lives you will have great wealth. So not necessarily monetary, but that you will have resources, you'll have what you need, and so forth. By avoiding telling ordinary lies, so not the big one, big one you cut yourself off. In the future, others will not cheat and blame you. By avoiding sexual misconduct in future lives, you will meet with good friends and a perfect partner who is harmonious exactly according to your wishes. So we can deduce if these things are happening for us now, I created the condition in past lives. If I want it in the future, got to keep creating the conditions. By avoiding alcohol, you will have a sharp and clear mind. So Geshe-la talked about this yesterday, of the effect on the subtle, not the most subtle, as he said, the subtler level of mind of alcohol. And well, mainly he was talking about alcohol. So that it clouds that clarity of the mind. It makes it harder to contact that clear light mind. Okay. So that's the purpose of not drinking, not taking intoxicants. Okay. So, any more questions about that? Yes.
In some descriptions, it's much more elaborate than that. It's like not engaging in any harm.
Yes. So when we talk about harmful speech, we talk about harsh speech, which I say abusive speech, harsh speech, or it doesn't have to be abusive. It can be actually something correct but spoken harshly. So we say speak the truth kindly. So harsh speech. I was just thinking that lying, so the whole spectrum from the teeniest, tiniest fib. Because we might notice that the teeniest, tiniest fib can become a big lie. Now, I won't necessarily say that this was a tiny fib. What was his name? The judge, Lionel Murphy. Remember that situation where he lied about driving the car to avoid a speeding fine? So in the greater scheme of things, a speeding fine was inconsequential for him. If he just admitted it, paid the fine, he'd still have been a judge. But then he made it more elaborate to hide that initial lie. And he was stripped of his...
Because he perverted the course of justice.
Yes, he perverted the course of justice.
And he was actually supposed to uphold the whole law.
Yes.
And it was just contrary.
And so he lost his job. And his reputation and everything on the basis of all he just had to say, yes, I drove the car. Yes. And he had the money to pay. So this is a good example of how that can go. So harsh speech, lying, divisive speech, speaking behind others' back. We do that a lot. Right? That's divisive speech. The big one is turning Sangha against each other, being divisive, and that can come from within a Sangha community or outside that. So,
by Sangha community means Buddhist centre.
I mean ordained Sangha.
Okay, right. I wanted to clarify.
means ordained Sangha, but if we elaborate in terms of our Sangha community, it's actually, Sangha means community, small s is all of us. And we think if we're, not backbiting anybody, not talking behind their back, that complaining about others, all of that whole spectrum, that we don't do any of that. Again, I always look to the Geshis and Lamas for role models. I've never heard yet the Geshis or so forth bad-mouthing other people. It's a little bit different to saying, oh, they're unreliable or they're this or that, but they won't create a whole elaborate story about that. And that happens. It happens in Dharma centers, and it has an impact on the whole Dharma center, on everybody, doesn't it? And so it happens generally in society. You just got to look at social media. And prefer not to go there. But just to know, it's big time in the world. And so as a Dharma, as a Buddhist, the fact that keeping vows that promote, instead of divisive speech, harmonious speech, inclusive speech, that's, takes regard for everybody, how much more powerful then that is in the world, increasingly. So by all means, use your social media for harmonious, kind, inspiring, etc. And then gossip. Sometimes it's said gossip, and sometimes it's idle chitter-chatter. Idle chitter-chatter is not necessarily gossip, is it? I'm not sure. But frivolous, and talk about frivolous speech. So we have these practices of enhancing the power of our speech. Frivolous speech does the opposite. It's sort of the power of our speech goes. In other words, people don't put so much store by our speech. If we're, just think for yourself, if somebody is blah, 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 what happens after a while? You cease to pay attention. So that would happen for us too, that people cease to pay attention. So the opposite to that is use our speech meaningfully, in a beneficial way. Even someone's going blah, 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 blah. We can, when the opportunity arises, use a meaningful speech or beneficial meaningful speech in response, rather than catching their blah, blah and going, oh yes, and blah, blah. And then they go blah, blah. Oh yes, and too much blah, blah. And then we end up doing the divisive speech, the lying, all the other harsh speech and everything else. Okay. So that's good. Really? Wow, doesn't time fly when you're finishing off from yesterday, which is wonderful because we can all rejoice in the fact of our new fellow Buddhist practitioners. So coming back to, for a short time, just got to find my files now because I'm the wrong one. Okay, so we were on these 6 practices, preliminary practices. We got up to number 4. We talked about setting our what our sources of inspiration and different motivations and so forth. So we've covered that. And then it says the advice is to bring to mind a visual image of the Buddha, also called the field of merit. So when we talk about a Buddha field, we're visualizing Shakyamuni Buddha. And so here we can see there's, can we see? We can't really see, there's a big aura around Shakyamuni Buddha on that depiction. Yes, but I'm referring to So they say at the time of the Buddha's enlightenment, it went on for like 10 meters or so, this huge multicolored aura, rainbow, we say rainbow body, is what we mean by rainbow body, that they just had this aura of light. And you may not see an aura of light, but when we're in the presence of these amazing beings, you can feel that energy, just like people coming in this morning. It's energy of attraction, right? It's a positive energy. So we can feel that. And so we can't necessarily see this aura of light. But at the time of when the Buddha attained enlightenment, and then after the 7 weeks of practices and so forth, what we now call Bodhgaya, then going, being requested to teach, and then the encounter with his previous seekers after truth, fellow seekers who thought, oh, the Buddha's coming. Remember, he lost the plot, he took the curd, he didn't practice the ascetic practices, he gave up after 6 years. Not quite sure how they all lived 6 years. Maybe they were doing true language, just taking the essence. So perhaps they had some very high realizations. In any case, once they saw Buddha approaching, they saw this massive aura, and they all just prostrated like, whatever you've learned, we want to know. So they could see that. So to be able to see that means that you already have great realizations, to be able to perceive that. We feel some good energy. We may not perceive this. And so just mentioning that each Buddha has its own pure land, its own Buddha field that we talk about, like here, above the Buddha, we have Maitreya Buddha up there. Can you see? I can't turn around that far.
Yes, we do. If we are picking up on.
Okay, above Guru Rinpoche over here, we have Amitabha Buddha. So that, you know, and they're sort of puffy white clouds. So we talk about that clouds of bodhicitta, and then we get descriptions of the whole Buddha field where every sound is mantra, all the beings are deities. The belief is that the whole environment is pure. It's a celestial abode, meaning the mandala, which we'll talk about this afternoon for those who are going to be here. And yeah, so we talk about it like that. Another way I like to respond to it is an energy field. So then when we look at the field of merit, so indeed, as Venerable Pekar said, here we have a representation, which was previously here, but is now here, of the many, many different beings in this field of merit. So generally when we're doing visualizations, we say all of those, the many into one in the form of Shakyamuni Buddha. So we can also think the other way, that they emanate out in all these different forms. So just to look at that in a little detail. Not that one, this one. So this book has at the back a whole description of that on page 130. And Bonka Rinpoche has I don't know in the appendices which one it is. Oh, here we go. So here it's represented in a sort of the list of everybody, which is represented there. And well, not everybody there, it's there, but this is what we call the lineage of our, particularly the Lam Rim teachings was in here. And what I like to look at as you go on and you hear more quotes from different ones, you can go, oh, that's so-and-so, oh, that's where they were there, they're there. And we get familiar. At the moment, there are a bunch of names that we may not have any association with. And this one goes down to Tujana Rinpoche, which is the teacher of His Holiness Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So then we can go down from there. Yeah. So here, if we look at this diagram, so it says the Lama Chökyi, which is Guru Puja that we do here, merit field. And so in this very, so we have these, sometimes they're referred to as trees there. And then we have this whole lineage, number of lineages there. And there are all these other holy beings all the way down here. So in the center, A, we have Lama Tsongkhapa. So we're following in the tradition of Lama Tsongkhapa, the Gelugpa tradition. And so we think about if we have a root guru, if we've already in our mind taken someone as a root guru, we see them as appearing in the aspect of Lama Tsongkhapa. So here on the altar, I'm not sure if we can see, oh yes, over here, between the offerings is a statue of Lama Yeshe in the aspect of Lama Tsongkhapa. So that's all of these following Geshe-la's instruction are coming up even further.
So that's this one here.
Yes. Yeah, so that's so feature Lama Yeshe, but in aspect wearing the yellow hat and holding the influence Lama Tsongkhapa. So that's that, as we say, in the aspect. So Lama Yeshe being the founder of our FPMT, then you might have Lama Yeshe, you might have Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you might have His Holiness Dalai Lama, you might have other, might be, whoever, it's your business, it's not anybody else's business. But we think of them inseparable. So inseparable in essence also from Shakyamuni Buddha, so, like that. And to the, yes, to the right. So here we have, to the right is Maitreya Buddha. Actually, we've got Maitreya Buddha over here to our right. The right represents, so when we put our hands, the right hand of compassion, which is the action, which is method, we talk about the vast lineage. So that's Maitreya. And then we have that in the left hand of wisdom, which is the profound wisdom lineage, is the Buddha Manjushri. So they're the ones that we've got like Shakyamuni Buddha, Lama Tsongkhapa, our own guru, inseparable here. We have Buddha Maitreya. Of course, I have to do it the other way. From your side, Buddha Maitreya from the other right, and Buddha Manjushri on that side. Yeah. So, and then around them are all these other, let's say, lineage lamas of that tradition. So, we've talked previously a lot about Lama Atisha. So Lama, you could say that Lama Tsongkhapa comes from that lineage, that comes from Lama Atisha. And on the basis of that, founded our Gelugpa tradition. So he's in the center. And so we have all the like Arya, Asanga, and so forth, who brought the method side, who focus on the compassion, bodhicitta, altruism, and then Manjushri and around that, like Arya, Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, all of these, who are very much the wisdom tradition. And then we have the lineage lamas. Yeah, so we have lineage lamas that appear around Lama Tsongkhapa. And above the different, so these 4 lines that are coming down to Lama Tsongkhapa are different practice traditions. So Guru Samaja, so that's like the most profound of the tantric highest yoga tantra teachings. So it's the most elaborate is Guru Samaja teachings. And then you also have the Yamantaka lineage. So one of these statues that was consecrated yesterday is Yamantaka, who's now abiding in the protector room. And then Vajra Bharava. Oh, that is Yamantaka. The Ganden oral transmission lineage. And Vajradhara. So Vajradhara is the tantric emanation of Shakyamuni Buddha, Dorje Chang. So when we say Lama Losang Tubwan Dorje Chang, which is the full name of Lama Tsongkhapa, when we do mandala offerings, we say all of those. So the Dorje Chang is Vajradhara, so that's representing the tantric path. Probably too much information already, right? And so then below that, let's go directly below it. Oh yes, we have all the lineage, the Kadampa lineage of Atisha and so forth. We don't need to go in detail here. I said 4, there's 5. Below Lama Tsongkhapa is again your own. So you've already visualized Lama Tsongkhapa inseparable from Shakyamuni Buddha, inseparable from your own guru, but specifically below that in the center is your own guru, root guru. And then you can visualize around that all your other teachers. And then it goes through different lines of highest yoga tantra, different levels of tantra, and those teachers and deities, and then the Sutrayana Buddhas. Now it's really representing Buddhas equal to every atom of space. And then you have the Arya Bodhisattvas, so not yet Buddhas, but well on the path. The solitary realizer arhats, so those following through their solitary realization, but through these days following the Theravadan path, would be who've had a direct perceptual realization of emptiness. And then the Hira arhats, similarly, who have a direct perceptual realization of emptiness. Dakas Dakinis are like the sky dwellers. So when we do Dura Puja in particular, we see that as a gathering of Dakas and Dakinis coming together, which is why they're on those specific days. It has a specific energy at that time. The Dharma protectors, so that's why we have a protector room. All those, like the other statue that was in Kala Rupa, we have Mahakala, we have many Dharma protectors, and we have protectors down right at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4 are the guardians of the 4 directions. So sometimes you'll see emanations of those before you come into a gompa or so forth, represented outside, not here. Yeah. So that's everybody. In brief. So again, just as you go along, don't dismiss this and say it's too high. You're just thinking, oh, when you hear a name and then see if that name's in there, where do they fit? And so, yeah. It's, so that's the same as this visualization on the front here. That's the same. So that's unpacking that image. And This is why we hold on to these ones, because it's wonderful. It's got it in here. So maybe we can make copies for everyone subsequently. So any questions about that? Because we've just got to visualize the merit field. Remember, we've sat down, we've set our posture, and now that's why it says we can visualize one into many or many into one. And most of us will probably say, no, much, because if we can get a visualization of Shakyamuni Buddha and hold that, let's say, whatever size you visualize Shakyamuni Buddha, keep that as your practice. Don't keep changing. And as you go on, more and more of the elements of that representation hold meaning for you. So this representation we call Sambhogakaya aspect, which is only directly perceived by those beings who have that direct perceptual realization of emptiness. So we see what we call Namana Kaya aspect. So we see, for example, the Dalai Lama as a monk, not as thousand-armed Chenrezig. If you do see a thousand-armed Chenrezig, I'm prostrating to you right now. But we consider His Holiness in the world as being that Buddha of compassion, really being of great benefit to the world, needing more and more compassion in these days. Okay, so any questions?
Venerable, with this diagram, with just my analytical brain,
yes, of course,
I can see the correlation between the letters.
Yeah.
But the numbers, does that just mean...
That's your other gurus.
Sorry?
Oh, there's different sets of numbers.
Yes, there are different sets of numbers.
Does that just mean there's 16 of them, 17, like any of the, like to the right? No,
because there's more of all of those. So the 16 of the highest Yoga Tantra deities, it doesn't mean there's only 16 highest Yoga Tantra deities. So we can say there's many, many more.
So what do the numbers then represent?
I'm not sure if they're representing particular one or it's actually just saying there's a hell of a lot. Sometimes with a number. See, you can, it may be particular ones, because when you go down to the lower, like the bodhisattvas, it's not saying there's only this many, of course.
Yeah.
There's gazillions of bodhisattvas.
S
is Sutrayana Buddhas, gazillions of those as well.
So that's the whole row.
Yeah, but there's many, many, many.
Many.
Yeah, so we can just say it's representative of many.
That's really good.
Yeah, it is. I think it's fabulous.
The name's Filter.
Yeah, over to like, I've heard that name before. Yeah, so when you do that, just say, what do you sit? Which side are you on?
And so what was the name of this statue here that you were talking about? Were you referring to? I wasn't referring to the statue. I was referring to Guru Rinpoche above. Above. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a Shakyamuni Buddha, as far as I can see, in a teaching Buddha.
And Maitreya and white Tara, is that?
I believe so. I moved the Taras around and now my eyesight won't let me see what it is.
Oh, okay.
So the difference between, in the representation, white Tara has her legs crossed.
That Tara has her right leg forward.
So that's Brahma. That's green Tara. So white Tara, I think, is on the other altar with Medicine Buddha. And so she has her legs crossed and she has eyes, 5 eyes. She has eyes there.
The
forehead, palms and feet, soles of feet.
So 7 altogether.
Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it there. And who's coming this afternoon? Okay. because we need a lunch break. Not that we're getting too over excited about our senses. So we can think that when we do have lunch, that we're making that offering, just as we've discussed, making offering to all the Buddhas and Dhamma Sangha, inseparable from our Guru. So dedications, page 16. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the precious body mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And page 19, Long Life Prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Have you got the swift return?
Oh, I thought you said they were in here.
No, I took them all out.
Yeah.
No, that would be my mistake. Okay.
The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Page 23, Long Life Prayer for Tenzin Oso. I just mentioned that Oso will be in Bendigo. We say offering teachings, but it's a workshop, a hack. And I always forget what those H-A-K. Habit.
Something.
Kindness. Something kindness.
It's something about habit aligning.
Aligning.
Course.
No, K. It's got a K on the end. Okay, that thing, that's 5-day, I think, workshop in Bendigo, and in December, that starts December 9, and the tickets for that are now available, and bookings are available, and there's a limit of 117 people. And as far as we're aware, OSO is not going anywhere else in Australia on that trip. So, reincarnation of Lama Yeshe. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddhist teachings. O foremost and holy Lama, to you are supreme. O Lama, please, please live long. And the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the oceans of the three jewels and the great ways of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
So if we were going to insert this, where did it go?
Wherever there was a...
So it was a completely separate...
A blank sleeve.
Because this one doesn't have a blank sleeve.